Hello, welcome back and thank you for staying with TMS. Now every year the 31st of May is observed as the World No Tobacco Day and is meant to encourage a 24-hour period of abstinence from all forms of tobacco consumption across the globe and consequently to help consumers get rid of their dependency. Now the idea is to awaken smokers to the reality that everything they do while smoking nicotine can be done as well as or even better without it. Joining TMS in our quest to get as many quitters as possible is Dr Sheheryar Jovindah, who is a consultant psychiatrist with the National Defence Hospital here in Lahore. Dr. Sir, thank you very much for joining me and very good morning to you. Now, is it really an emotional dependence, physical dependence? Why do people pick up, tobacco and then never leave it?
Right. I think the first starting point is that we have to acknowledge that it is a form of dependence or addiction.
Okay.
It can end up that way. So in the usual scenario is that a teenager would start smoking, and that could be as a result of some peer pressure or in order to look cool. It's cool to smoke. Or because he must have seen his father smoking and the grandfather with a pipe and a cigar, which even looked even more cool. So that's how it starts, and a lot of people think that I think it's okay to keep on smoking, but then a stage comes where either other people realize or they realize that it has become a problem. And by problem I mean is that what happens is that when they try to reduce their smoking, their tobacco consumption, what they experience is what we call withdrawal symptoms.
Right, right.
And by withdrawal symptoms in plain English is that the body is used to a certain level of nicotine. Nicotine is the substance that is present in tobacco, and the body is used to that because it's in the blood, the concentration is there in the blood. And once that concentration is not there, then the body asks for that.
So it is a physical dependency where the body also demands it, because a lot of I wouldn't say, the youngsters, but people who, think of quitting, they say, oh, we are not going to smoke up anymore or anything like that. They think that it is going to be very difficult for them to adjust socially as well. So there are a lot of other pressures too. People would like to kick the habit, but there is, a concept of people smoking in the office. They'll go out and then that is the place where they also, for instance, it's just an example, they exchange ideas, talk about things. Now, if you're not a part of it, then you are an outcast.
Absolutely. Yes. When you rightly said, it is a form of psychological dependence and physical dependence, both. Now, what do we mean by psychological dependence? Psychological dependence, going from a psychiatrist, would be that you are psychologically dependent. For example, if you don't have it, you feel the craving. And you feel the need for that. For example, people would have various excuses or various reasons to smoke. For example, one is just a habit. The other is that they may be feeling anxious or sad or depressed, or they would be under a lot of stress. And in order to cope with that stress, they would start smoking, and one thing to another. And then what happens is, then once they don't have that cigarette in their hands. They feel the need of it, that something is missing in their life.
Right.
Then it goes on to the physical dependence, that as I mentioned before, that if they don't have those certain levels of nicotine in their blood, then the body starts telling them that something is wrong somewhere.
And how many ways are there? I mean, there is smoking, there is a cigarette, and then people also chew tobacco?
Yes, I mean, there are different ways. People use pipes, they use cigars. Hookah is used a lot in our country, and something is called roll-ups or rollies. That's a cheap way of using tobacco. That you put tobacco in a piece of paper and you roll it, and then you just use that, and you set fire to one end, and then you can inhale the smoke.
Okay.
That's
a crude form of it.
Crude form of that.
And then there are also, I was reading somewhere about, these sports people in the United States, baseball, they also chew it. They have this constant, they're chewing the nicotine and everything, so that's also another way, spitting it out. Now, let's talk about, because again, we put up this question yesterday. A lot of people were saying that it is more difficult than you think to quit this habit. And we are going to make sure that at least, we can convince 2 people even if we can do that, that would be good to at least try to do that. So what are the ways? You kick that habit, you stop even picking up a cigarette. What do you do? Nicotine patches?
Yes, I think the starting point is what I call psychoeducation. That is by psychoeducation means, by psycho means psychological, right?
Okay.
That basically we need to tell our young people, our adolescents, 13 to 18, and even the adults as well, first of all, about the hazards of smoking. I mean, because I think in our society, people try to minimize this problem. And they say that it's pretty okay, because people have other big problems to cope with.
In
comparison, right? When we compare with the Western world, of course, our problems on a daily basis are much more. So they say, let's cope with the financial stress first, and then we'll talk about quitting smoking, right? So the starting bit is, what are the psychological hazards? What are the physical hazards of smoking? So once we have provided that education, and that's a wake-up call for a lot of people. For example, I work along with people with all sorts of mental health problems. I work with cancer patients as well. So once people know that how many forms of cancers can be caused by smoking, and they will say, oh my God, right, so many cancers can be caused.
Right.
So that is the starting point, right? So you give them the education, the right education. And after that, once you have provided the education in a manner that they can comprehend, in a simple way, not with a lot of medical jargon, but in a simple way.
In a very commonsensical way where they understand.
Absolutely, according to their educational backgrounds, their social backgrounds, then you provide that education. And once that education is given, then the starting point is, okay, what do we want to do about that?
Right.
Because if you do not emphasize and give education, but just if I come to you and say, okay, why don't you quit smoking? That doesn't carry any weight.
True.
If I tell you how bad it is, then it carries more weight.
At least if you interest, somebody to actually listen to what is on. Now, I was reading again somewhere that it is not advised to, or at least I don't know how it goes, you are in a better position to tell us, you cannot, or it's not sustainable to kick the habit like totally. You have to phase it out. Is that right?
There are different ways of quitting smoking, and now we're going to come to the point of smoking cessation. How do we quit smoking, basically? I think there are different ways of that. What we call is, the model that I use is biological, psychological, and social. What does that mean? Means is, one way is medication, for example. When we talk about medication, we talk about something called nicotine replacement therapy, NRT, because nicotine is the main chemical in tobacco which is needed by the body and the brain.
Which is addictive.
Which is addictive, absolutely. So once you stop smoking, you need nicotine, and if you don't get nicotine, you get withdrawal symptoms. So in the nicotine replacement therapy, what you get is there are different forms. They are like chewing gums. They are tablets that you can put beneath your tongue, and they dissolve slowly. Then there are patches. They are patches which are, you put the patch on your arm or somewhere in the body. Some patches work for 16 hours. Some patches work for 24 hours. And then, so these are the ways how nicotine is gradually released in your bloodstream, so that now that you're not smoking, your body is being provided by this source. And
but wasn't the idea to rid the body of it altogether?
You're absolutely right.
Why are we replacing it?
What we're trying to do is, one of the old method is, when you ask the question how do we quit, is called cold turkey model, which is you just stop it and then you suffer, basically.
Also, you do suffer if you go cold
turkey.
Yes,
you do suffer. The problem with that is that it is painful and it is very unpleasant, and a lot of people say, what the hell it is. I can't cope with that. Because as I said, people have a lot of anxieties and worries. They already have enough on their plate to cope with, right? True. So their coping mechanisms may not be well enough to cope with the stress of quitting smoking. If you provide them with some support, they're more likely to quit smoke. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So so that's the second way. That's the reason why. Now, when I said nicotine replacement therapy, it's not that they're going to take that for the rest of their lives. It is for a certain time period. For example, it could be 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, something on those lines.
Okay. So the idea is to make them at least stop picking up the cigarette. You replace it with something else and then phase that out too.
Phase that out. The purpose for those patches or things would be so that they don't have as much craving for nicotine. Now, the other way of doing is sometimes we use medication. There are some antidepressants that are used. There are medication that is used to quit smoking. I mean, when we are thinking of quitting smoking, there are certain things that are important that we need to see about certain factors. For example, how motivated the person is.
True, true. I think everything actually starts from there.
Starts with that, right? How motivated they are. Then the second thing is if they have tried to quit smoking in the past, how miserable it was for them, how difficult it was, because then we can learn from the previous experiences. As a psychiatrist, I would know better, okay, so you tried to quit 3 times before and that's what happened. Okay, that gives me a more clear picture how to go about this time.
True. And how determined you are as well and how much you can sustain it.
Absolutely. The third thing is there any form of counseling available in order to support them apart from if they're using patches or medication? The next thing is what other support systems do they have? For example, if they're living on their own, absolutely isolated, or if they're living with 4 friends who smoke 60 cigarettes a day.
Basically, what are the outside, the environment that is influencing them?
So there are a lot of factors there which are very important, which as a psychiatrist I would take into consideration when I'm thinking of advising them which route to go for. So these are one of the few. There are many more, of course.
Doctor, what do you make of that, or what do you think of those electronic cigarettes? They have also come out. I mean, basically the idea, I think, to me at least, when I think about it, is to replace the real thing with something.
Yes. I mean, it's better, yeah, you're right, they're better than smoking, there's no doubt about that. And as a result of that, again, they're inhaling those, the smoke is being inhaled, and they're not getting the hazards that you would get as if you're smoking a cigarette. So they would be another way. In some places you would use inhalers or sprays could also be used in terms of, again, part of the NRT, the nicotine replacement therapy. Then another role is in terms of counseling. Counseling is important. For example, different ways.
So basically you suggest, Dr. Sheheryar, that it's all right for somebody who is, who wants to quit smoking to seek help. It's all right.
Absolutely, it's not like
because
a mental
health issue. A lot
health
of people
issue.
here think, but a lot of people here they trivialize the smoking bit of it, that it's just cigarette. There is nothing more to it. There are no hard drugs going on. So why should we take help? You know, that makes it even bigger than it is.
It is.
So that is one thing that really stops people from going. Another thing is, a lot of people say it's, again, it's the company, it's the social company. They see somebody smoking, they want to have a smoke. They are going to have their coffee break and they want to have a smoke. People don't smoke in the dark. They really need to see it too, that ash, that whole smoke coming out and all. So it's again emotional dependency, physical dependency, all of these together.
Absolutely.
What do you rather make of the government's plans of, curtailing smoking by putting up no smoking signs everywhere? You can't smoke in your offices, especially, let's not talk about Pakistani government because we have the laws but there is no implementation. If you go to New York, now you can't even smoke outside on the plazas, you can't smoke in Central Park.
Absolutely.
So those are stringent measures.
You are absolutely right on that. I was in England for many years, and over there what happens is that you can't smoke in a hospital. There are designated areas where you would go and smoke. Now, all these strategies where there are designated areas, there are no smoking areas in public places, in the Western world, that has reduced tobacco consumption. I mean, in the male population, it has leveled, or it's decreasing, not in the female population, but in the male population.
It is decreasing in the male population
and not in the female? It has leveled and now decreasing in the male, but with the female population, it's still increasing in the Western world.
All right.
In our world, of course, it is increasing tremendously, even in the male population as well. So these measures of, let's say, holding a day where you would have no smoking. In America, they have a day, like today is a very important, is a very good example, and that's how you bring awareness. Seminars around awareness. I would say in schools, it is very important that it should be part of curriculum. I think in the Western world, they do talk about drugs, hard drugs, which heroin, hash, cocaine, LSD, and those things. But they do talk about smoking as well. I think in Pakistan also, when it comes to school, because I work very closely with schools, things are slightly changing for good.
I doubt, Doctor, that there is anybody out there who still wouldn't know the harmful effects of tobacco.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
Because I think we are obviously, spreading awareness, we are talking about it. There are so many things that have been done. Even if you look at the cigarette packs now, they have those graphic images.
Yes.
Obviously, you don't even feel like picking it up. But the point is, people know.
Absolutely.
There is nobody who doesn't know.
It's all about hammering, that how much do we hammer these things. For example, if I come to you once, that would have some impact. If I come to you 10 times, it is bound to have more impact. So you say, okay, now this guy has come for the 10th time, what the hell does he want? Okay, let's talk to him, right? Let's listen to him. So again, it boils down to the economic situation as well. In the Western world, they have finances and budgets to do that, but the more it is done, that is the only way. For example, through your channel, and the media is doing a good job.
Of course, and also this is something that we have to keep reminding as well. This is one day at least, if you're a smoker, that you have to be smoke free, or you're not going to smoke for 24 hours at least. So that is, I guess, also a way of starting. One question, final question that people really keep asking is, does secondhand smoke
Absolutely.
affect
It is called
as well?
passive smoking, and it is absolutely harmful. There's no doubt about that. And it is harmful for children.
Is it more harmful?
It's not more harmful, but it's equally harmful.
Okay.
So in our country, the father would smoke proudly in front of children, and he wouldn't know that there are hazards of that. So passive smoking, second-hand smoking is definitely, and especially mothers who are pregnant, if they're smoking during pregnancy, then it is very important, because it is affecting their baby as well. So mothers who smoke during pregnancy, their chances of babies having with low birth weight, and they could have some congenital or by birth defects as well.
Of course.
And it has been seen in research that those children, when they grow up, they have more chances of getting anxiety as adults, because when their mom was pregnant, mom used to smoke. So we have to be mindful on that end as well.
I think it's all about responsibility, basically.
It is.
I mean, you have done what you have done, but for the people around you, I mean, we're talking about second-hand smoking, even from the mother to the child, or the father smoking in an environment where the children are there, you have to be more responsible about it, and I think that is a good message.
And the problem is, in our society, since males are more dominating, so even if the wife wants to tell him off, she struggles, and that's the problem.
And obviously, that's the thing, you can smoke anywhere here. You can smoke in your car, you can smoke in your office, even not all offices have no smoking, bans. You can actually do it anywhere, and it's expected and accepted as well. You can step out, have your smoke, come back in. Not good. So today is the day that you are not going to smoke for 24 hours, and eventually you are going to read up on it, like we spoke about it, and do your own research as well, and decide. High time as well. Thank you, Dr. Sheheryar, for coming here, talking about it, and hopefully I hope that it reaches at least some people, this discussion. Okay, short break and we'll be right back.